Of all our products, wall padding is one that requires the most careful measurements before manufacturing. If something like a cutout for an outlet is off by even a half inch, the outlet could be rendered useless. To get started, you'll need a measuring tape, a pencil, a partner, and a blank piece of paper. The best way to record all the measurements we'll be taking is on a sketch of the panels. No matter how bad you are at drawing, this will be the most organized way of keeping the measurements for the padding. Your sketches don't have to be pretty. Pictures of the walls are also helpful but not required. If you do take pictures, you can even print them out and write your measurements directly on them. First, you will need to decide how far up from the floor you're starting. Measurements for obstacles such as power outlets, fire alarm, and windows originate at this point. This is usually just above the baseboard, or 3 to 4 inches off the floor. You should also decide at this point how high you need your padding to be. Our standard heights are 5, 6, 7, and 8 feet, but we can also do a custom height of anything under 8 feet. Next, pick a starting point on the extreme left or right of the wall. Notate where this is in your description. All measurements for the first panel start here. From there, first measure the length of the wall section, from the starting point to the first obstacle or corner that will necessitate a full break in the padding. After recording that on your sketch, we'll need to go back and record any measurements for any obstacles you may encounter. For each obstacle, you'll need to measure from the starting point to the near side of the obstacle, from the near side to the far side, from the floor to the bottom, and from the bottom to the top. One important note is that you need to account for not just the size of the obstacle, but for the required use. You don't want to make your fire alarms inaccessible. Also, while measuring, you need to record the location and rough size of any graphic that you want printed onto each padding section. These can be recorded in the same way as an obstacle, but need to be very clearly marked on your sketch as a graphic with a notation of what graphic specifically is going to be printed there. If you have a file name already, that's great. Otherwise, a detailed description is fine. Keep in mind that we can print on the full surface of the padding, including around obstacles. It does not have to be limited to uninterrupted spaces. When you send over your sketch and description, please also include any graphic or file that you reference. After you've recorded all the obstacles and graphics needed for the first panel, we'll move on to the next panel and on around the full room. In our case, the next panel is a door. Doors can be measured in the same way that any other panel is, except that careful height measurements are needed, as well as consideration of door operation. Since padding is about 2.5 inches thick, the panel can interfere with door handles opening and closing if enough clearance isn't allowed. Obstacles like door handles and windows should be noted for doors just like obstacles on other padding panels. As you proceed to measure around the full room, you'll start running into things like corners and columns. These need to be carefully noted in your sketch. For columns, we'll need measurements on both the sides and the front. Whenever there is a corner or other change in padding direction, the thickness of the padding needs to be accounted for. The easiest way to do this is to simply tell us that you did not take this into account in your sketch. We can make the necessary adjustments to your measurements to avoid any overlapping issues. If you would like to account for this yourself, you'll need to subtract the thickness of the padding 2.5 inches from one side of each corner. Most importantly, you'll have to remember that you've done this when you're measuring for obstacles on that panel. It's easy to make a mistake this way, which is why we recommend you measuring everything from the corners and we make the appropriate adjustments. And that should be all you need to know to make accurate sketch schematics for great looking wall padding. If you do have any questions while measuring, the Cover Sports sales team is happy to help. Just give us a call, 800-445-6680.